Starting off strong again today with another rock bass. Yeah. But I did notice I drilled a couple holes on some crib piles here, and today I'm actually gonna do a how to jig soft plastics to mimic a live bait minnow. There are crappie down there. I've seen them. There's a ton of bluegill. I also have my my nice little tip down set up right here that has yet to go off. I have yet to finish that one, that video, but that video will be out too. So today actually I'm going to do some how to jig soft plastics for crappie. Alright, so we are in the shack here. I got some crappie on the camera. So I was reading some articles on Lake Link, and Jason Mitchell actually posted an article about how he goes about jigging soft plastics. But I haven't seen an actual video about jigging soft plastics for crappie under the ice, like a how-to. I've seen a lot of videos of they jig spoons for walleyes, and they put some terrible background music to it. So today's like a little experiment. I'm gonna drop down a minnow. This is a live minnow, just on a basic ice fishing jig. It's a blue ice fishing jig, and I'm just gonna see how this minnow reacts when a crappie comes up to it, and then I'm gonna try to mimic that same exact action when I drop a plastic that looks exactly like that minnow down. So I hooked the minnow in the head because that's where I'm gonna hook the plastic. So figured probably want to keep it the same. There are crappie down there, so let's get down there and see if we can catch some of these things. Minnow here. There we go. Well, we got a bunch of bluegill hanging out by it too, but I think it's the same concept. You know what? Let's hook the minnow through the back, because I think the jig type I'm going to use, it's actually going to sit, the plastic's going to sit horizontally. These crappie actually seem like they're out away from some of these brush piles that I'm set up on, but hopefully they come closer to it. So the minnow's kind of swimming freely. Oh, there's a stupid rock bass looking at it right now. But now it's playing dead. Rock bass is coming in. I think it's going to be the same concept for bluegill, rock bass, crappie, perch, whatever panfish you're going after. I'm just playing dead right now. Now that rock bass is slowly, it's just sitting there. Looked like it's slowly going to move. Yeah, there it goes. It's slowly moving towards it. Oh, now it's swimming. Rock bass took a bite out of it. I'm going to let it eat it because I want to catch it. It's a baby rock bass. But the rock bass hit it as the minnow was actually swimming, so that's good to note. I was jigging it a couple times to try to get some action out of the minnow. Sometimes if you have minnows in a minnow bucket with a lot warmer water, when you throw them in this ice water, they freeze up. Not literally, they don't move. There are crappie there. Let's see if I can get him to come back. Oh, rock bass just came out of nowhere. I've noticed, yeah, these rock bass are definitely a lot more aggressive than the regular panfish. But that minnow is not even moving, just on a drop down, so that could be key. Drop downs, definitely like a play dead and then give it a little bit of a shimmy. Okay, so I realized I filmed this video. This video is probably like 2 weeks old now. I just haven't had time to complete everything, and I didn't really do a great job of explaining what was really going on. I touched on a few things, but I just want to point out what exactly I observed from just using a live bait minnow. Now, I don't have a live bait minnow here, but I have this thing, which is going to be the live bait minnow. One, these panfish would hit it right away on the drop down. That's fairly obvious. I mean, I think most ice fishermen have experienced that on just a drop down of any bait. These fish will hit it. But the other thing I noticed, and I think I pointed out really clearly during the first rock bass, was the minnow was moving, the rock bass started to get closer to approach it. it stopped moving, like it played dead. That rock bass came in closer as it played dead, and then it started moving again, and that's when that rock bass decided to strike it. So that's kind of what I'm going to take going forward into the spring here, when I'm using some of these larger plastics like this. I'm going to be honest with you, it's February now, and if you live in the northern states, after 2 months of ice fishing, you're ready for open water. You're done. And after seeing all these YouTubers going down to Florida and Texas to fish for, spawning crappie and spawning bass, it's tough to get out on the ice. I'm not gonna lie. I'm probably gonna try it again this weekend, but so that's what I noticed with the live bait minnow, is it was moving, fish came at it to get the attention. It played dead when the fish got within, I don't know, probably a foot of it. The fish moved closer, and then it tried to swim away on the jig, and that's when the fish decided to strike it. So that's kind of what I'm going to be using for these softer plastics, these larger, softer plastic swim baits this summer, or in the spring, summer. So let's get into the actual soft plastics that I was using. Actually, the first plastic I used was this small little grub paddle tail thing here. It's like an orange and chartreuse color. And I guess the main thing that I want to point out when it gets later into the season for ice fishing, downsizing you got to downsize the plastics you use. This is even way too big. I had crappie come up to it and spit it out, and I had a lot of bluegill looking at it, but nothing really wanted to hit it. So I guess the biggest takeaways from this, from watching the underwater footage of this over time, I'm just going to play some with bluegills here, but was that they liked when it dropped down to the bottom of my screen, which is about, I think it's about a 2-foot window from the top of my viewing screen to the bottom, somewhere 1.5 feet, 2 feet, and then I'd slowly just barely jig it up, and that's when they'd really be interested in a bait that's kind of rising, going towards the surface, whether they think it's a bait fish that's struggling or some sort of insect larva that's going to hatch. I don't really know. I was reading, the article that I mentioned was on lakelink.com, and it was written by Jason Mitchell, fairly well known in the ice fishing world. He was actually using Mackie plastics, which I don't have anything like those here, but they're smaller. They're kind of like a grub, but they got a pointed tail instead of a paddle tail like this. This is just a paddle tail. He was talking about his jigging cadence and how he goes about using the jigging cadence, because obviously these plastics, they don't quite have the scent of live bait, of waxies or minnows, so you do have to use the movement to your advantage, the jigging cadence to your advantage to actually get these fish to strike. And we're in February now, it's going to be tough. These fish have seen pretty much every lure. People can just drive right out on the ice and stack up right on any crib file, any weed line, any rock pile. So they've seen pretty much everything. So it's going to be very difficult to get these fish to strike. So size of the plastic, downsizing later in the season like we are right now, and the jigging cadence. And the cadence that I found most effective was letting it drop down a couple feet. I was fishing probably 4 or 5 feet off the bottom, and then I'm slowly, just barely bouncing it all the way up to the top of my viewing screen, which is about 1.5 feet to 2 feet. So going into the open water season, what's going to be the game plan here? From what I've seen from the ice fishing, being able to put a camera down the hole and see these fish actually react to baits. So open water season, I can use some bigger tubes. This is actually my favorite. Not this color, it's more of a, there we go. That's something like a small plastic swim bait pattern. I also have, these are these Pico scent tubes that I was using in a couple different videos. These are full-bodied tubes. If you notice, I got these those rings there. My camera can focus. There we go. Good job. So full-bodied tubes, something like this. These are some bigger grub with paddle tails. This is a 2-inch bait. And then I had a subscriber send me do some handmade marabou and bucktail jigs. This is a crazy one. I posted this on Instagram earlier this month. Check that one out. That's a crazy one. But these are a little bit big for right now, so I'm hoping to get to use these open water season. I've seen video of these underwater. I'll actually show this specific jig, this orange and chartreuse marabou jig that he tied. It's got some crazy action to it. But what this means going into the summer, that's the point. I'm going to be starting vertical jigging because it's going to be much colder water. I'm feeling like they're going to be a little more lethargic come late March, early April. So this is really key, knowing that they're going to strike lures if I drop it down and I slowly raise the rod, a foot to 2 feet, but I'm barely moving that lure, half an inch at a time, half an inch every time I raise the rod. I'm only raising it a half an inch and then pause it a little bit, kind of buzz the rod tip. That's going to be key going into open water season here. And so the last thing that I wanted to talk about before I go back to the actual fish catch of this day, I didn't get a whole lot of footage of it, but I was using some of these. And focus. And these are just trout fly nymphs. So that's another thing I'm going to incorporate. Probably drop shot type setup, 1/8 ounce bell sinker, and then probably just a loop knot. Let them swim freely. And I noticed they're really effective because these things mimic bugs, mimic mayfly larvae, and mayfly larvae, when they're ready to hatch, they slowly move to the top of the water column. So that jigging cadence of letting it drop down to the bottom of that strike zone of where these crappie or bluegill, perch, or wherever are going to actually try and bite the lure, and slowly raising it up, just barely bouncing that rod tip, it's going to make it look like a rising fly going to the surface ready to hatch. So I think that's going to be another key tactic that I'm going to implement this spring for some spawning crappie, because I can actually see them in shallower water. So let's get back to the fish catches that day. Roll clip. I'm going to set up this 1/96 ounce weight with a little paddle tail grub. Oh my gosh! Hooked up right away. I didn't even get this. I didn't even get the camera on. Well, you didn't see it on the underwater camera, but baby bluegill. Ouch. About a 7-inch fish. There we go. Got him on that time. Sometimes you got to let him take it a little bit. He's not very big, but he bit the paddle tail and then he slowly inhaled. I let him take it a little bit and then he slowly inhaled it. It's a tiny bluegill. Nothing worth mentioning. But got him. He's not very big though. He's baby crappie. Unfortunately, I didn't have. I'm gonna show it one more time because I didn't have. I think my battery's dead on my GoPro. But oh, good lord! Looks like something took a bite out of him. And here they come. And there's a rock bass, but I'll take it. Why not? He absolutely hammered it. Just slowly moving it the way up. Just a tiny rock bass though. Baby fish. I mean, if it catches these ones, I'm sure it catches bigger ones too. So that is going to wrap it up for me. Appreciate you watching. If you like this little how-to instructional, I guess you'd call it, I don't know. If you liked it, please be sure to hit that like button. And if you're not a subscriber, you should be. Below the video, there's a subscribe button. End of the video, see my face holding a crappie. You can click on that. Thanks again. Hopefully you have better luck than I did catching bigger fish with these soft plastics. We'll see ya.